Hey Jessica, here is your video natal chart reading. Now I'm going to be doing this natal chart reading in about 3 parts, I believe. So this is part 1, and I'm going to be sending you each part at a time just so you can get started listening to them. So let me just share my screen and pull up your chart. So I hope you're doing well, and thank you for giving me the option of doing your natal chart via video. All right, so I chose this Leo art because you're a Leo. So here's your chart right here. As you can see, you already know you're a Scorpio rising with that Chiron and Scorpio in the first house. And you have some aspect patterns that are very poignant in your chart, or I'll say very significant in your chart. You got Grand Cross, and then you also got a mystic rectangle. So I'm going to be talking about those aspect patterns more than likely in part 2. But yeah, that's one of the first things I noticed when I look at your chart. You got that Grand Cross, which is a fixed Grand Cross in your chart. So I'll get into how that plays out in your life as we go along. Now, just to get into the basics of your chart analysis, in terms of elements, fire is the most dominant. And that's because you have the Leo sun, you got Mercury in Leo, you got a Leo midheaven, and you also have Pluto in Sagittarius. And then water is next dominant because you got that Scorpio rising. You also have Mars and Venus in Cancer. And then air is next in terms of the dominant elements, and that's because you have that Aquarius energy. And then after that, you have Earth. So you only have a little bit of Earth. And that, with that being said, you might attract people that have significant energy in Earth signs. Like they might be a Capricorn, or you might attract a Taurus, especially a Taurus, because you know that sign is on your 7th house cusp. So because you're pretty much lacking in the Earth department, you only have that Saturn and Taurus, you could attract people that will help to make up for that deficiency of Earth in your chart. Now, in terms of modalities, you have most of your planets in fixed signs, including your ascendant is in a fixed sign as well. So Scorpio, and then you also have that Leo energy. You also have Aquarius. So fixed is the most dominant in your chart in terms of modalities. And that can result in your life being heavily fated. It can also deal with where it takes a while for you to initiate changes. And change might have to come from an outside force a lot of times. Next, you have cardinal as the next dominant in terms of modalities. And then you have mutable being the least dominant in your chart. In terms of the houses, you have most of your planets in angular houses. And then after that, angular houses, that's the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th. And then for succeeded, that is the 2nd, the 5th, the 8th, and the 11th. And then cadent, that's the 3rd, 6th, 9th, and 12th. So you have dominant energy in angular houses. So that means that, your life is going to be rather dynamic and very, you could be very influential in some ways because of that. And then next you have a lot of energy in cadent houses, mainly with that Mars and Venus in the 9th house. And then you have some energy in your succeeding houses, but angular houses are basically winning out. And angular, when you have planets in angular houses, again, your life could be very dynamic, and you may want to really be in charge of your life in those areas of life that are populated, those angular houses that are populated. In terms of chart shapes, you have a seesaw chart shape, meaning you have some distinct oppositions in your chart. Basically, you got planets in the northern hemisphere opposing planets in the southern hemisphere, so that contributes to the seesaw chart shape. So when you have a seesaw chart shape, there might often be this trade-off that's taking place, or you might be focusing on one area of your life at the expense of the other. So for instance, you might be focusing a lot on your professional life at the expense of your personal life. And that can point to the planets in your 10th house, Sun and Mercury in North Node, opposing the planets in your fourth house, which is Uranus, South Node, and the Moon. So here's your chart again. So upon first glance, it really doesn't look like a seesaw chart shape, but if you take into account that we're not taking Chiron into account, but even with Saturn hanging out over here, it doesn't really look like a seesaw chart shape, but that's what it's classified as. And again, namely because you have these oppositions right here between the 4th and the 10th, and also the 3rd and the 9th. All right, so let's talk about your ascendant. So you're a Scorpio rising, and your ascendant is at the 0 degree of Scorpio. So what that does is it provides limitless possibilities dealing with the sign Scorpio. I also like to call the 0 degree of Scorpio the void. You can also look at it as a black hole. And again, it's just pointing to a multitude of possibilities or limitless possibilities when dealing with the sign Scorpio. So that could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. It just means that, yes, you have full access to that window into the world of Scorpio, you could say. And again, you could go too far, you could end up falling into a black hole. There could be times where you sense this void in your life, but there could also be times where you get your hands on some substantial money that you don't have to earn. So as a Scorpio rising, you are deep, intense, pensive, observant, quiet and low-key, nondescript, secretive, investigative. So you might have just this instinct to investigate things. Inquisitive, incisive, perceptive. So Scorpio being the most perceptive sign, but know that sometimes perceptions can be wrong. Influential. So you could be influential at some point, or you might already be influential, and you are, considering what you have told me. Absorbent. So Scorpio will absorb all of the energy within its surroundings. So you are absorbing both positive and negative energy, and you always need some way to release that energy. So working out is a great way to release that pent-up energy that you are absorbing. Also sexual. So Scorpio being the sign of sex, yes. So sex will be a major theme in your life. Urges, temptations can visit you from time to time. Obsessions, compulsions. So you might sometimes do things and you're not sure why you do it, but it just comes automatically. You compulsively do things. Compulsive behavior. Manipulation, whether it's you doing the manipulating or you're attracting manipulators in your life, manipulation will be a major theme. Strength, both physical, but also mental, inner and outer strength. That's what Scorpio produces. So you have a lot of strength at your disposal. Endurance. So Scorpio is a sign of endurance. So you could display endurance from time to time, whether that's running for miles or whether that's, giving 110% at a project you're working on and, you're burning the candle at both ends. Concentration. So Scorpio is a concentration of energy, but it can also deal with where you're able to concentrate on task without being distracted. Jealousy and hate could visit you from time to time. So as a Scorpio rising, don't be surprised if you attract some haters into your life, some people that are jealous of you. But sometimes you could be filled with jealousy and hate yourself. Exploitation is another theme that comes with the Scorpio ascendant. So you always got to be on guard for people that are out to exploit you. Abuse is another common manifestation of the Scorpio ascendant. And also Scorpio rising will produce profound experiences. Death, transformation, and transition are keywords that you should keep in mind because you're a Scorpio rising. Now, death doesn't always have to be death in the physical sense. It could be in the symbolic or figurative sense, like the death of a friendship or the death of a dream, the death of a certain phase of your life. But also literal death could come and visit you in certain forms, like the death of a beloved pet, the death of certain loved ones. Transformation. So as a Scorpio rising, you could be transforming your looks from time to time, or you could undergo a transformation in terms of your outlook on life, in terms of your persona. Transition. So you might be going through transitional periods from time to time. Scorpio is just that sign that needs to keep evolving. So being in transition is a common manifestation of Scorpio rising. And like I said, evolution. So Scorpio is supposed to evolve. So don't be surprised if you find yourself evolving beyond the point where it's like, wow, my life is much different now than it was 10 years ago. Reinventing yourself is another theme when you're a Scorpio rising. So you might reinvent yourself from time to time. Crime. Crime is a major theme of Scorpio. So you could be involved in a crime, criminal activity. You could be a victim of a crime at some point. You could attract criminals. The dark side. So you will experience some form of the dark side in one way, shape, or form. In some way, shape, or form. That just goes with the Scorpio territory. Also the occult. So having an interest in the occult is very Scorpio rising. Pests. Pests could be in the form of people, but it can also be in the form of like insects. It could also be in the form of spirits. So being pestered, that could be Scorpio rising as well. Problems with elimination. So you could experience bouts of constipation from time to time. You could experience loose stools from time to time. Problems with the genitals. Toxicity. So you could accumulate a lot of toxins in your body. So it's important to do things to release yourself of those toxins. So for instance, running for miles on the regular, that's a good way because you're going to be sweating out those toxins, sweating out that negative energy. And you could find yourself in toxic relationships as well, or you could just find yourself around toxic people at various times of your life. Infectious. So infections. So as a Scorpio rising, you're just naturally susceptible to contracting infections. But also this can mean that your personality is infectious to some people. You have this effect upon people. Surgery. So surgery is a major theme of Scorpio. So as a Scorpio rising, you may have experience undergoing surgery. If you haven't already, you might undergo a surgical procedure later on in life. Working out, running comes along with Scorpio rising. So you might be into working out or running for miles on the regular. And again, that's really good because it's going to help you to release those toxins. Now, here are the aspects involving your ascendant. So you have ascendant trine moon. Now, this is a dissociative aspect because it's involving signs that normally don't trine each other because your moon is in Aquarius and your ascendant is in Scorpio. But the reason why this trine is present because your moon is at the 0 degree of Scorpio. I'm sorry, your ascendant is at the 0 degree of Scorpio. Your moon is at the 23rd degree of Aquarius. So that produces a wide trine. So it's not that powerful, but it can still help you out in some ways, such as being comfortable with nudity, because you did mention that you're a dancer, exotic dancer. So this can enable you to do what you do because it can show that, you can be comfortable in the nude. Getting your rent paid by someone, special rental rate, or being able to get a housing voucher. Breast surgery. So this could be to improve the look of your breast. And as an exotic dancer, that would make a lot of sense. I'm not saying you had it, but you might have considered it, or you might have it already, or you might get it in the future. Good for managing groups of people or women. So this ascendant tri-moon aspect can make you a good manager of people in general, but especially women. Psychoanalysis via astrology. So Scorpio is the sign of psychoanalysis. With that moon in Aquarius, Aquarius rules astrology, and that moon could represent a female astrologer. A home remodeling project, especially in terms of lighting. So at some point, you might decide to improve the look of your home by putting in some track lighting or putting in some special lights, colorful lights, what have you. Making money online, making money via tips. So that can also come through that ascendant tri-moon aspect. So that's one of your more positive aspects in your chart. You also have Venus squaring your ascendant, and this can result in attracting female haters. Also, it points to taking a long time to get ready, to get, get dialed up, I like to say. So you could take an extra time to get dialed up, all that stuff. That just makes me think of, you spending a lot of time in the mirror, because every time you look in the mirror, you're like, oh, I can fix that. I can put that in place, all that type of stuff. So that was one of your questions. So that's one of the things in your chart that points to that, because you said you have a terrible problem with lateness. You take a long time to get ready. So Venus squaring your ascendant, that's one of the problems. So again, that right there is like you looking in the mirror and then you seeing a hair out of place, but then you see that this could be fixed too. And then but that Venus in Cancer too could just make you too inclined to be, just doing things according to feeling, not according to a time clock. Spending a lot of time in the shower. So that could be another one. You might spend a lot of time in the shower, mainly because it just puts you in that relaxed state, and you might easily lose track of time. Now, this can make it easy to be turned off by people. Also, you could become obsessed with your appearance. So that could be another reason why it takes an extra long time for you to get ready. Avoidance of family, or you could be avoiding certain areas, certain locations. Also, you could avoid certain races or just one particular race, because Venus is in Cancer. Oh, this is another dissociative aspect as well. So this square between the ascendant and Venus is dissociative, meaning it's not forming a natural square. And that's because it's consisting of two water signs, Venus in Cancer, your ascendant in Scorpio. But it's because Venus is in the later degrees of Cancer. That's why it's forming that square. So it's squaring by distance, not by sign. Being banned, barred, or denied entry from some type of place. A codependent relationship, especially in terms of housing. Indebtedness, so being indebted to someone. A disdain for being a housewife. So I believe that was that one of your questions? Let me see. Yeah. So you said, will I be a good wife, a good housewife? Well, with this aspect right here, I'm seeing where that could be one of your challenges, just being relegated to housewife status. I don't think you're really going to like that too much. You might be able to get away with it for the first couple of years, or, be able to be fine with it the first couple of years. But soon that Scorpio ascendant is going to start protesting, and you're going to want more out of life than just being a housewife. Because that's how it is when you have that dominant Scorpio energy. So as a Scorpio rising, you can't just put your all into a relationship and have nothing else that you got going on in your life. If you do, you will start to fill that void that I talk about. A partner or friend turns on you. So you always gotta just kind of be looking at people with that side eye. I'm just gonna say, don't put your full faith and trust into hardly anybody unless they have proven themselves worthy. Next, you have Saturn opposing the ascendant. So this can result in being with a partner who is possessive. This could be a codependent relationship. This is a gold digging aspect with Saturn being in the 7th house. So you can definitely attract a man with money, and where basically that's all the relationship is about. But it could produce problems with sexual, him getting his sexual needs met, because maybe you're not into him sexually, just his money. Being robbed, your safety could be in jeopardy at some point. Being choked out, or maybe you attract partners that like to choke you during sex, or maybe you're into that type of thing. People trying to impose their values upon you. That could be a common theme throughout your life. Aging before your time, or you might be concerned about growing old before your time, but this can also deal with where you are viewed as mature by some people. So where's that at? Yeah, you said, what in my chart makes me mature for my age? Part of that is that Saturn opposing your ascendant, but that also explains why people view you as a Taurus. So you said, why do people assume I am a Taurus or Virgo friend? Or you said, or Virgo, your friend says, I seem very grounded. So that Saturn and Taurus opposing your ascendant, that's why some people see you as a Taurus and why your friend sees you as very grounded. Also, Saturn opposition at Scorpio, that can make you very, no, I'm not going to say very superficial, but it could make you quite superficial to the point where you're never fully satisfied with the way you look. More about ascendant opposition Saturn, this can manifest as job instability, issues with authority, being a nonconformist, people commenting on your voice. So you mentioned your voice being high pitch. Where is that at? I'm just trying to find that part. You said what contributes to my high voice. So yeah, so Saturn opposition ascendant, but not just that. When I get into that third house, I'll be talking about the aspect in particular that causes you to have that high pitched voice. But Saturn and Taurus definitely has something to do with it. Saturn and Taurus can actually deal with the shortening of the vocal cords, or where your vocal cords are insufficient. Issues with voice throat. So there it is right there. There you could end up having strep throat at some point, some type of throat infection or whatever. Let me know if you've ever had strep throat. You could even lose your voice when you get really sick at times. Also, voice can even mean, of course, we can talk about voice in the literal sense, but we can talk about voice in the figurative sense. Like sometimes if you're in a relationship, you may lack a voice. You may not be able to really have your say in the relationship. You may have a hard time expressing yourself fully in a relationship. So you might lack a voice in a relationship because Saturn and Taurus is in that 7th house. Now, this is an aspect that could play out as you being a dominatrix. And those dominatrix, they be making a lot of money. So Neptune is also squaring your ascendant. So this could deal with you undergoing a metamorphosis in terms of weight or appearance, whether you lose a lot of weight at some point and you might gain a lot of weight, or you might just go through a drastic metamorphosis in terms of your hair or your look, what have you. The use of an alias or a stage name, and being a dancer, that would make sense. Hiding your true identity or certain aspects about your life, that comes into play. Being isolated. So there could be times where you are isolated, whether it's due to living in a rural area or whether it's just due to feeling isolated because you just don't fit in. Being victimized. Dissolution of the self. So this could play out when in love affairs because Neptune's ruling the 5th house. So when in love affairs, you might lose touch with the individual self, with your individuality. Lies are exposed. Know that lies will be exposed because the ascendant's in Scorpio, Neptune's in Aquarius. So yeah, can't ever just assume that a lie won't come out, but you could be exposing a lover's lies with that. Abandonment, neglect involving parents. Now, I'm not saying this means that your parents totally neglected you or abandoned you, but there could be some themes dealing with those words present. Sorry, with respect to your parents. Also, there could be some shame associated with what you do, whether it's you that feels a sense of shame, but I would think it's some people, if you told them what you did, they would try to make you feel shameful about what you do. More about Ascendant square Neptune. This can bring shady friends and associates into your life. Also, if you're not careful, you could be implicated in a crime, hanging around the wrong people. Nudity being in conflict with your desire to be undercover and mysterious. So with that Neptune in Aquarius, Aquarius is a sign of nudity. But then with Scorpio, Scorpio likes to keep things undercover. Scorpio likes to leave things up to, the imagination or mystery. So that shows that conflict right there. Embarrassing and humiliating situations. So this square could put you in a position at times where you are humiliated or embarrassed. Challenges with being fake. So if you're an exotic dancer, I would think you got to put on this fake persona. You can't be your true self. Because I know there's sometimes you probably want to cuss these dudes out, but you got to put on the fake smile and everything like that. So that could deal with this aspect right here. Oftentimes when Neptune is squaring the ascendant, there is something about you that you're not being real about. Like you're not being upfront, or there might be a reason for you to cover up some information about yourself or to portray a role that's not really who you are. Challenge with forming close bonds with people. So Scorpio being the sign of bonding, when it's clashing with Aquarius, with your Neptune in Aquarius, that could deal with where you're even afraid, like you got this fear of intimacy. So you may never let somebody just to come like fully into your life where you have this inseparable bond with them or where you have this total trust with them. This could certainly produce trust issues. Also, you could encounter trolls on social media or just encounter some hate on social media. An online account could get hacked. Ascendant square midheaven. So with this square, you could experience a lack of closeness with both of your parents or with, one or both of your parents. A lot of times it's going to be both where, you may not have felt significant to either of them. That's the thing with Scorpio rising. Scorpio rising children, they need to feel significant. And if they don't, they might carry that throughout their life. And next thing you know, they have some issues that they got to deal with. Job instability. So that resurfaces through this aspect. Taking a break from work, taking some time off. It could be a number of months, a year. I think you did tell me you took about a year off from dancing. Being treated as a sex object. Void exists in terms of matters of the heart. Sexual abuse, being violated, receiving unwanted attention. And the older you get, the more this square might play out. Like the more this square might be activated to the point where you might try to avoid most men the older you get, because you got the Leo midheaven, Leo rules men, and then you got Scorpio rising, and Scorpio is the sign of avoidance, but it can also deal with hatred. It can deal with where, you just have this aversion. So you might really start to develop an aversion towards men, especially the longer you work in the strip clubs. Having to become someone you're not when working. So a lot of people that have this square, and actually this square is pretty common in natal charts. A lot of people that have this square, they feel like they can't be themselves when at work, or their persona is in conflict with their job, with their employer, their career. Challenges with finding jobs that are compatible with your personality. So that's another problem that comes with this square. Ascendant sextile north node. So here's a positive aspect that points to you being a sex worker, stripper, adult entertainment. And that's because that north node is in Virgo in the 10th house, and that deals with work. And the ascendant is in Scorpio. So that's the epitome of a sex worker. Getting help from powerful or influential people. Successful surgical procedures. This could be you finding a good surgeon and you sticking with this surgeon for more than one procedure. Providing sexual healing. Either somebody giving it to you or you giving it to them. Transforming your look. Having different personas, and that could come into play with you being a dancer. Good for being a personal trainer, fitness instructor, self-help guru. Good for being a physical or occupational therapist. If you wanted to step away from the dancing world, you could be a personal trainer, a fitness instructor, since you're already physical. You could be one of those self-help gurus. You could be a physical or occupational therapist. This is also good for being a barmaid or a bartender, especially when you take Ascendant Trine, Pisces, South Node into account. Now, being an exotic dancer, fantasy girl, enchantress, private dancer. I'm your private dancer. Private dances, private dancer, different costumes that you wear. This is all representing your Ascendant Trine, South Node aspect in your chart. Could be channeled into an OnlyFans or Instagram page. So if you didn't want to be in the clubs no more, there's always OnlyFans. Also Instagram. Modeling gigs. Good for working within the beauty industry, providing therapeutic services like massage therapy. Successful cosmetic surgery procedures. So here's another aspect that could deal with that. Creating an illusion. So as a dancer, you know, you're creating this illusion that you're attracted to these guys, that you're ready, willing, and able. Earning money through tips or donations. So if you were to have a YouTube channel, this could manifest as a prominent YouTube channel. I can't remember if I have it down here, but yeah, because Scorpio is prominence, South Node Pisces, Pisces is videos. So yeah, this could be a prominent YouTube channel. You could actually become a major influencer. Attracting a lover who insulates you from the threat of financial hardship. Dividends, returns on investments, because that South Node, wait a minute, no, it's in the 4th house. Oh, I know why I said that though, especially if we're talking about real estate. So that could play out with that. And that Scorpio Ascendant, that could be money that you're getting that you're not earning. Attracting men from the Caribbean or some other tropical locale. Romantic giveaways. I said giveaway. Well, giveaway could come into play, like you could be getting a tennis bracelet, but I meant to write getaways. Let me see, do I have the drawing tools now? I'm sorry, I'm being distracted because I'm using Zoom, and before I was using Microsoft Teams, but before that I was using Zooms, and I was just checking and see, oh yeah, there it is, to annotate, just in case I gotta use it. Giving back to society. So once you've become successful in life, once you've made plenty of money, with this trine, you could be giving back to society. You could be going on some philanthropic endeavors or embarking upon some philanthropic endeavors. So let me just hit escape real quick, because I'm gonna put getaways instead of giveaways. I got to get away. All right. So the ascendant is conjoined to the asteroid Panacea, and this can pertain to medication that is prescribed for a viral or bacterial infection. It could manifest as vaccinations and perhaps complications that could come with them. So with this aspect right here, I would just be careful, because Scorpio deals with injections. So that's why I'm putting vaccinations here. We already know Panacea deals with medicine, a cure, some type of remedy. Now, this conjunction could manifest as reoccurring yeast infections as well, because of the Scorpio influence. Sexual healing could be a manifestation of this aspect. So you could be bringing sexual healing to someone that's really in need. All right, so here's your chart again. So we already covered your Scorpio Ascendant. As you can see, Scorpio is spanning your whole 1st house. All of this is you right here, all this Scorpio energy. But know that this Scorpio energy can also be projected onto other people, especially when you have this Chiron right here. which could represent someone that, is mistreating you, could be abusive, what have you. But this can also deal with a doctor, being under a doctor's care. This could deal with a surgeon, actually. So we're going to get into Chiron now, and then we'll be getting into your second house. But yeah, just having all that Scorpio energy in the first house means that you are powerful. You're very influential, and you could be basically this big time sex symbol. And it makes sense that you're a dancer with all that Scorpio energy coloring that first house. So first house. Again, here's the first house. We already talked about what's in that first house. Chiron's at the 13th degree of Scorpio. It is squaring Uranus. It's also squaring the sun. So we're going to be talking about that. Chiron's also making a sesqui square with Jupiter. All right, so Chiron's at the 13th degree of Scorpio. It's in the first house. So this can manifest as financial problems, especially in the form of being saddled with exorbitant debt. Now that 13th degree is known as regeneration change. Now death is a major theme of the 13th degree, death both in the literal and symbolic sense. So that 13th degree is very much akin to the energy of Scorpio. And Scorpio deals with death, but not just physical death, the figurative, symbolic type of death, just like the 13th degree. Now, the 13th degree also pertains to friendships, associations, group affiliations. It also deals with independence, liberation, and it deals with sudden change, unexpected change, shock, surprises, breakups, separations. So again, financial problems, especially in the form of being saddled with exorbitant debt, issues with power and control, unhealthy dependency upon people, places, or things, unhealthy emotional attachments, power plays, and manipulation often come with these attachments. And again, that's Chiron at the 13th degree of Scorpio. Now, wolves can come in sheep's clothing, and what they are offering will be very enticing when you have Chiron and Scorpio in the first house. Chiron and Scorpio also produces the temptation to resort to underhanded tactics in order to gain leverage over others. Wounds are more likely to be psychological than anything else. However, some could be physical. Chiron and Scorpio can produce traumatic events that lead to deep emotional scarring. And sometimes there could be physical scarring, that you might have a scar that you consider to be unsightly. You might try to cover it up, or you might try to lighten it up with dermaderma or something like that. Problems with the genitals and rectum come with a first house Chiron and Scorpio, or you just could be very concerned about your genital area simply because you're an exotic dancer. You got to make sure you're smelling fresh down there. Both the, the booty area and the coochie area. You're going to have to make sure you're smelling fresh. So just having that in the first house alone can make you very self-conscious about that. Now, the first house placement of Chiron and Scorpio also puts you at serious risk for infections of all kinds, including those transmitted via sexual activity. You may have an issue with scarring. So we have Chiron running parallel to Atlantis. So this could deal with where you sense impending doom. This could be past life recall, especially with respect to catastrophic events. You could be punished or anticipating punishment with this connection to Atlantis. Also, Chiron is running parallel to the fixed star Kambalia, and this can produce an interest in conducting research of any kind. This can manifest as a police investigation, espionage, can bring an interest in esoteric subjects. It can manifest as a secret life and a spiritual life. Chiron is conjoined to the fixed star Menkent, and Menkent deals with wisdom, astronomy, divination, medicine, botany, and music. Chiron is conjoined to the fixed star Alphecca, and Alphecca can deal with honors, dignity, literary ability, or should I say literary skill, brilliance, poetic ability or poetic talent, It can result in finding yourself in a scandal, betrayal in love, sorrow through children. Chiron is also conjoined to the Arabic part of bondage, and this can result in being in bondage to a sex partner, a benefactor, or a sugar daddy, being in bondage to debt, or this can manifest as BSDM type sex, or where you're a dominatrix. Chiron is conjoined to the Arabic part of friends. This could deal with a death of a friendship, tragic death of a friend, betrayal at the hands of a friend, underhanded friends, criminal friends, codependency with respect to friendship. All right, so let's get into this second house. And I'm gonna have to hit escape real quick because I noticed that the animations aren't fully built in there yet. So let me just make sure. My bad. That's the one thing I did double check because I was trying to get this to you. But yeah, so you have the 29th degree of Scorpio on your second house cusp, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. I just want to make sure that all of these are animated right. This looks fine. This looks fine. Let me do this. All right, just a couple more. That looks fine. That looks fine. That looks fine. Okay, one more. All right, sorry about that. Okay, let's get back into this second house. So here's your second house right here. It's starting at the 29th degree of Scorpio. Now that 29th degree can bring all manner of conflict, both internal and external, and especially when dealing with issues like sex, because we're talking about the 29th degree of Scorpio, issues with joint financial decision-making, joint finances, in particular, joint financial responsibilities. You could be dependent upon somebody for housing with that 29th degree of Scorpio. 29th degree can deal with conflicts involving home, but also family, mothers, motherhood, race, culture, ethnicity, nationality. A number of problems can occur with that 29th degree. It could bring interference from third parties. It could bring forth love triangles. Now, with that 29th degree of Scorpio, you might feel like you are under high pressure situations when it comes to making money. And that would make sense considering that you are an exotic dancer, but also you've been involved in relationships where it's mostly about a financial transaction, or at least that one you told me about, that was more so about that, I believe. But yeah, that 29th degree of Scorpio, that could deal with where you're getting money, but there's some strings attached, or where there's interference from a third party. That could be the person that's taking your booth rent or whatever, when you got to pay a fee at the strip club to, be able to dance. That could be the interference from the third party in that case. Now, Pluto is ruling the second house, but so is Mars. So, because we got that Scorpio here. So Pluto ruling that second house in Sagittarius, that could result in you making a lot of money. So that's like big money. That's having deep pockets. But that can also deal with where you can attract someone that has a lot of money that's going to support you. That right there could deal with receiving financial support. But Pluto in the second could also deal with receiving tips, being tipped. They making it rain on you. That's that Pluto and Sagittarius in the second house right there. Now, Mars in Cancer, ruling the second house, that Mars in Cancer, that could deal with where you are working in female-dominated positions or female-dominated industries, which you are as a dancer. And that's also showing that you can make money through the use of your feminine wiles, which is very Mars in Cancer, especially when Venus is taken into account. And the 9th house placement of Mars and Venus is about making money independently. And that 9th house reinforces that Sagittarius theme, and that can point to big money, but also financial freedom. So you might have an aspiration of becoming financially free at some point, where you don't even have to even dance in a strip club no more. You don't really got to put in no hard labor anymore. So Pluto in the second, oh, let me go back to, so you got Sagittarius intercepted in that second house. So financial freedom, again, is reinforced by that Sagittarius intercept in the second. But when you look at Jupiter, Jupiter's in Pisces, co-ruler of the second house. And that could show part of what I was saying about there being some strings attached. Or where, let's say you get with a rich guy, because Jupiter is in the 5th, that could be a lover, get with a rich guy, but he's putting all these conditions upon you being able to get that money, or he's going to make you feel like you're trapped in this relationship. You're going to feel like you're at his mercy. And Chiron, Sesame Square Jupiter can have a lot to do with that, where this guy, he's paying all your bills, but he's asking for too much. He expects too much. And it's like, now you wondering if the money's even worth it. Sagittarius intercepted in the second house can cause you to overeat at times if you're not careful. Jupiter and Pisces could cause you to have addictive tendencies, addicted to anything that brings you pleasurable sensations. So that can be problematic. But this also just deals with you making money as a dancer too, with that Jupiter and Pisces in the 5th house. 5th house is performing, it's entertaining, all that. So there it is right there, because you said, what did you say about dancing? You said, is dancing a job that fits well with my chart? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It's like prominent in your chart. And again, second house deals with money. Sagittarius intercepted in the second house. Jupiter and Pisces, co-ruler the second. Then you got Pluto and Sagittarius in the second. Pluto could deal with sex in terms of money, sex for money. So, you know, you consider yourself I would consider you a sex worker. Like usually I think some people hear sex worker, they think prostitution automatically, but hell, you could do that too. I'm just saying. And then you got that midheaven trine Pluto, but I'm gonna get into that in a minute. But yeah, you definitely have what it takes to be a good dancer and make a lot of money at it and attract men that are going to give you a lot of money. But like I said, because Jupiter is in sesame square with Chiron, there might be some strings attached. He might be trying to ask you for money. Like he might be asking for too much. And it just may not. That's like, you know, how somebody, you know, that whole thing about somebody giving you $1, but they got a string attached to it and they pulling it. Yeah, that type of thing. So let's talk about Pluto in your second house. Now, Pluto is at the 5th degree of Sagittarius. It's retrograde in the second house. Now, retrograde planets, they're just going to exacerbate the potential for things. That's all. The 5th degree, communication. It deals with the intellect, mobility, transportation, siblings, change. So it's like Mercury. Now, with this, Pluto at the 5th degree of Sagittarius, you want to avoid living in high crime areas because your safety could be in jeopardy at some point. Concern over the cost of higher education. So you could have some concerns about that, and that could be preventing you from going to school, or it could make you reluctant to get a college degree, college or university degree. Being forced to travel long distances via car for whatever reason, that could be a problem. A high car note. Being forced to learn a foreign language. And again, I'm relating all this to Pluto at the 5th degree in particular of Sagittarius. But then we're going to get into the general manifestations of Pluto in Sagittarius and in the second house. Outlandish, over the top, or blunt sex talk. And that could be part of what goes into play with you making that money. Traffic citations, traffic court license, and inspections. So you could have some run-ins with traffic cops, might pile up some traffic tickets because you got that Sagittarius intercepted in the second house. So yeah. Empowerment through spirituality. That's what Pluto in Sagittarius produces. The power of faith can bring rebirths through long distance relocations. Rebirths can also occur through religion and spirituality, as well as higher education. There's risk of being saddled with a mountain of debt, mountain of student loan debt in particular, risk of being influenced by groups that promote false religious or spiritual teachings, developing an aversion to organized religion, drawn to occult teachings. Travel expenses could get out of hand as well. Now, with Pluto and Sagittarius in the second house, it may not be easy to hold on to money due to debt and other financial obligations. And it can also cause you to spend money compulsively at times. Now, it's easy to gain money from various sources, though. That includes credit cards, loans, and unemployment. Unearned income could be in the form of spousal or child support, inheritance, or an insurance payout, or a legal settlement. Money could be gained through contests, sweepstakes, and the lottery. This puts you at risk for damaged possessions, risk of being robbed when Pluto is in the second house. And because it's in Sagittarius, sometimes you might leave yourself wide open to get got. So you always got to make sure you're not leaving yourself wide open. Could become a victim of fraud or a hacker. Being in a codependent relationship due to the financial security that it provides. Being at risk for compromising your values, standards, or dignity for the sake of earning money or appeasing someone. Also, Pluto in the second house can result in a significant change in terms of your value system that occurs at some point. It can also produce strong aversions to certain foods. Pluto is conjoined to the asteroid Hebe. Now, when I saw this, my eyebrow raised up because I really don't like this aspect, and you'll see why. So this could be custody issues involving a child. Child support issues. Death of a child is possible with this aspect. It's not definite, but it's a potential. This can manifest as a problem child, sexual abuse of a child, or physical abuse, you could say. And with this, you could attract a pedo. So if you suspect a guy of possibly being like that, there's a good chance he will be. Now, if you work in a strip club, like you said, I would probably guess that you probably come around a lot of like slimy, no good dudes from time to time. You know, there gotta be, you know, one or two of them in the club that's into that. So I'm just saying, if you were to ever have a child, you would need to guard this child with your life. Pluto conjunct Hidalgo. So Hidalgo is an asteroid that could deal with testifying, or basically stating your piece, or exclaiming something, or being very outspoken. So with Pluto conjunct to Hidalgo, this could deal with where you have to testify in a criminal court case at some point. This can also manifest as a subpoena or a summons, being condemned for your beliefs or statements, activism, filing for bankruptcy proceedings, bankruptcy attorney. Pluto is running contraparallel to the asteroid Toro, and this can result in attracting physical abusers, or where you are abused, whether it's, you know, from the early part of your life or what have you. Abusive tendencies, so you can have some abusive tendencies with this aspect. Displays of strength and masculinity. Being around a lot of men. Experiencing the dark side of men, or you could even say the animalistic side of men. Pluto is conjoined to Marfiq. Marfiq is a fixed star that can make one passionate, blindly good-hearted, easily seduced, but it's also good for healing with herbs. So you might consider being an herbalist at some point, or you might just use herbs to create your own home remedies or whatever. Or you could use products that have herbal blends in them, or you could smoke medical marijuana, whichever way you want to slice it. Now, Pluto is running parallel to Zubin El Shamali, which is a fixed star that can manifest as honors, wealth, personal distinction, a brilliant mind. I thought I animated this already. See, this is, I swear I animated this before I, oh my God. I know I animated this before. No, it didn't. I'm just like, wow. I purposely double checked this. Let's try this again. So honors, wealth, distinction, brilliant mind, success in sports, politics, war, religion, writing, tragedy, violence, and melancholy. Third house. So we come to the third house. You only have one planet in the third house. But what's interesting is you have the Aries point of Capricorn on the third house cusp. So that Aries point of Capricorn, part of the reason why people assume that you are more mature than what your age says. So this is part of the reason. So when you speak, you could speak with this air of authority. You could speak, you know, in a serious manner or a serious tone, even though you have a high-pitched voice. And it means that, you know, you're very mature in your mindset. Now, with that Aries point in Capricorn, you know, some good things can come from that. Like, you could be gifted a car at some point, like whether it's coming from your father or some old man that buys a car for you. And Saturn, ruler of the third house, is in Taurus. That's basically saying, ask and ye shall receive from a partner, because Saturn's in the seventh. So with that, it's like, yeah, ask and ye shall receive whatever you want. You might even get with a guy that where he tells you, yo, whatever you need, just ask. You might have heard that already. So use that to your advantage. Also, that Aries point in Capricorn can set you up for a bad car accident. And it could be where your whole car is totaled, but it can also deal with where you just have a love for vintage cars. You just might have a love for like old school TV, things like that, like to read old books and all that. So that Aries point in Capricorn, when you see the Aries point, that's basically the 0 degree of any cardinal sign. It's showing that fated events could befall you that will come from an outside force. So with that being said, going back to the accident theme, Capricorn, Aries point in Capricorn on the 3rd, Saturn in the 7th, squaring Neptune and Uranus. That puts you at risk for a serious car accident. And usually it will come from someone else. More than likely, it'll be the other driver's fault. So like I was telling someone earlier today, because they had another placement in their chart that could deal with where they need to practice defensive driving skills. And you need to do the same thing. Safety always needs to come first when you drive, because Saturn in Taurus is ruling the 3rd house. Now, with that Saturn in Taurus ruling the 3rd house, you might be meticulous when it comes to writing. When it comes to speaking, you probably do not like to make mistakes with grammar and spelling. That's one thing that could probably really turn you off. If a guy was trying to kick it to you and y'all texting each other and he got all these misspelled words and shit, you probably be like, I can't. So you are very much about decency, decorum. You're very much about standards. So if a guy's not up to your standards, especially in terms of the intellect, yeah, there's a high chance you're going to get turned off and you're immediately going to put him in the rejection pile. So that could be that Saturn opposition ascendant right there, where you just reject somebody outright simply because they keep misspelling the word salad or so. I don't know. But yeah, that could deal with where you are very much about standards when it comes to communication, when it comes to a person's intellectual capabilities, when it comes to their manner of conversation. The quality of a conversation is very important to you with Saturn and Taurus ruling that 3rd house. That can also make you slow to make up your mind about things, because Saturn's in the 7th house in Taurus and it's ruling that 3rd house. Also, this shows that your father had a lot of influence upon your mindset, whether he was a constant presence in your life or not. And that could deal with you attracting older men simply because you've been ingrained in that mindset where it's been influenced by your father. Also, if we're talking about siblings, you could have a half sibling with this hookup, this Capricorn, and then Saturn in Taurus, squaring Uranus in particular. That could be a half sibling through your father that you don't have contact with. This can deal with, these squares can deal with where you're just not close to your siblings, period. Might have been separated from a sibling growing up. And let me see what else. Also, your hands. Your hands may age before anything else on your body. So time to time, you might look down at your hands and you might be like, God damn, my hands look old. If that's not a problem, it could be the skin on your hands. You might suffer from dry skin. You might just suffer from issues involving Capricorn related problems. So for instance, when you drive, you could have a bad knee at some point and it's not easy to drive because it might be your right knee where, you know, that's the leg you got to use your gas pedal on. Also, you might have some issues with your teeth at some point. You might have teeth that are kind of spaced apart. Let me know if that's the case with that Capricorn on the third house cusp like that. If you ever had a problem with your teeth being spaced apart, or if they are kind of spaced apart, or you might even just have a space in your teeth. All right, so let's talk about Neptune. So as you can see, Neptune's in your third house, is at the 0 degree of Aquarius, and it's close to your fourth house. So it's all the way near the end of that third house, but it's still in the third. And that has a lot to do with you speaking with that Neptune squaring Saturn. That high-pitched voice is coming from that in particular. Saturn ruling the third house, squaring Neptune. Neptune can just produce like a cartoonish type of high-pitched voice. And then, like I said, with Saturn and Taurus, that could deal with where you have shortened vocal cords. And then with Saturn ruling that third house, yeah, that's you communicating and having that high-pitched voice. And you may not like the way it sounds, simply because of the squares right here. All right, Neptune in the third house. So Neptune is at the 0 degree of Aquarius. It's in the third house. That 0 degree of Aquarius provides you with full access to the etheric plane, to the ether. So this makes you highly intuitive, extremely intuitive. It's like you have an open connection to the ether. Like you can just dial up the ether and get whatever messages you want out of it. Now, it may not be always at will, though. Some of these intuitive messages might just come at you at random, and they may not even have anything to do with you personally. You might just know certain things. Now, Neptune was in Aquarius between 1998 and 2011. Neptune in Aquarius ushered in a new wave of cutting-edge technologies. One of the major technological advancements was the smartphone. For instance, the first iPhone was released in 2007. The internet became more sophisticated as well. So Neptune is a generational planet, so it has a generational effect, as you are seeing. Now, YouTube was created in 2005. Neptune in Aquarius basically helped to bring us into the digital and information age. Video game graphics and special effects in films underwent vast improvements. CGI was used extensively in films. Neptune in Aquarius resulted in more people turning to metaphysical studies for higher understanding. Astrology experienced a major resurgence after its allure during the 60s and 70s faded in the 80s and 90s. Designer drugs like ecstasy became more prominent. Music became more electronic. Parties called raves were all the rage. Art became more eccentric as well as perverse. Every kind of perversion imaginable was easily accessible via the internet. On an individual level, Neptune in Aquarius can produce a yearning to be part of something far greater than yourself. There is a need to be very discerning when it comes to your choice of friends, since Neptune breeds lies, deception, gossip, and exploitation. Sorrowful events could occur regarding some of your friends. Sacrifices may be made where friends are concerned. There's risk of falling in with the wrong crowd. Also, Neptune, when in the third house, produces a mind that is imaginative, but also one that is prone to self-delusion. Also, it can produce addictive tendencies. The third house is a rather difficult placement for Neptune due to the escapist quality that it bestows upon the conscious mind. It also produces gullibility and a high degree of impressionability. It'll be easy to resort to dishonesty and duplicity. It is also easy to get lost in fantasy. Impractical decision-making is another manifestation of this placement of Neptune. And there is a tendency towards secrecy and being vague with respect to providing details. Mental laziness and passive aggressiveness could become chronic problems if not kept in check. Also, it may not have been easy to concentrate in school due to Neptune's influence. Daydreaming could have been a problem. Good for the arts and for healthcare, which are constructive channels for this ethereal energy. Neptune in the third house can produce very vivid dreams. Lucid dreaming is even possible. And again, it makes you extremely intuitive. You may also talk in your sleep at times. Sleep apnea could be a manifestation of Neptune in the third house at some point. Neptune in the third house can result in paranoia and irrational fear. Alcohol and certain drugs could make matters worse. There is danger of falling asleep at the wheel when Neptune is in the third house. If you drink, there's risk of getting at least one DUI charge. Boundaries could be crossed where siblings, relatives, and even neighbors are concerned. Theft could occur at the hands of one of the above. Your phone and or computer could be full of pictures. Taking pictures may be one of your favorite hobbies, and you might have all the social media apps on your phone. You might take a lot of pictures via social media apps because Neptune's in Aquarius. You might also have some astrology apps downloaded on your phone as well. Now, you may also be a big movie buff. The fantasy, sci-fi, and superhero genres may appeal to you the most. Now, Neptune is running contraparallel to the asteroid Hera, and this can manifest as a jealous woman or being around jealous women. A woman could take revenge upon you, and this could be in the form of damaging your car. So she could slash your tires, she could key your car, and that's because Neptune's in the third house. She could break out your windows. Being in a secret relationship where the wife or girlfriend discovers you, and she'll probably discover you through her man's phone because Neptune's in your third house. A friend is secretly jealous of you because Neptune's in Aquarius. Neptune is opposing the asteroid Hygiea. Now, this can manifest as a back injury, back problems, especially in terms of the sciatic nerve. Side effects of prescription drug use. Selling drugs, especially prescription pills. You might have either considered it, you might have done it before, or you could be associated with someone that does. This can also manifest as a drug connect. Neptune conjunct the fixed star Sham. So Sham can result in being combative, opinionated, jealous, danger of death in battle. Now, this doesn't have to pertain to you in particular. It could pertain to someone you know, a friend, because Neptune's in Aquarius. It could be a sibling or relative because Neptune's in the third house. Neptune is running parallel to the fixed star Akrab. And Akrab can bestow upon you riches, but it also pertains to materialism. It bestows upon you power, honor, transitory wealth. So where you could get wealth, but you could quickly lose it if you're not careful. Also, a crab can manifest as malevolent, merciless. You're going to have to forgive me. For some reason, I am so tongue-tied today. Mercilessness, fiendishness, repulsiveness, and malice. Theft and crime, pestilence, contagious diseases. All right, that brings us to your fourth house. So let me take a little break. So this is the end of part one. I'll be back with part two, where we will be talking about the fourth, fifth, and sixth houses. Then part three will be either the rest of the houses, or I might do 7, 8, 9, and then part four will be 10, 11, 12. So this is just part one. Stay tuned for more. I'm going to send you this one now so that you'll at least have part 1 that you could go over, and you could write down any questions that you have and send them to me via email. And I'm going to be answering the rest of your questions, some of them in part 2, others in part 3, and the rest of them in part 4. So stay tuned for the next parts. And again, thank you for providing me with the option to do your reading via video. All right, so I will be back. Now, let me see where we're at, because I'm trying to find the share screen situation. Hold on. So I could close out. Oh, here it is. I had to stop share. That's what it was. All right, I'll be back.